Hi, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joyofbaking.com. Today we're going to make a really easy chocolate cake frosted with chocolate ganache. So first, preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 180 degrees Celsius, and then you will need an 8-inch square, 20 centimeter baking pan. Now, if you're going to serve this cake directly out of the pan, you don't need to grease it. You can just leave it ungreased. If you want to remove it, then I would butter and flour it, and I would even line the bottom of the pan with a piece of parchment or wax paper. But I always serve it right out of the pan, so I'm going to leave it ungreased. Now, this cake is really a mix in the pan cake. So theoretically, if you want, you can just mix everything together right in the pan, and no bowls or anything required. But honestly, I find it a little difficult to mix all the ingredients together really thoroughly, especially with a square pan. So today I'm going to show you how I do it. I do it in a bowl. So in a large bowl, I have 1.5 cups, which is 195 grams of all-purpose flour. You may know that as plain flour. And to that, I'm going to add 1 cup, 200 grams of granulated white sugar, along with 1/4 cup of unsweetened cocoa powder. I'm just using the regular unsweetened, not the Dutch processed here. You could use the Dutch processed, but I find for this recipe, just a regular unsweetened is best. And then I'm sifting this because cocoa powder always seems to have lumps. Okay, and then to that I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of baking powder, 3/4 teaspoon of baking soda, and just 1/4 teaspoon of salt. I like to use a kosher. And then I'm just going to whisk all this together. You could use a wooden spoon or if you want. But the wire whisk really gets all the ingredients all mixed together. And you especially want that baking soda and baking powder to get mixed in. So that's it, really simple. And then for the wet ingredients, we have 1 cup, 240 milliliters of warm water. And then to that, I'm just going to add 1 tablespoon of, I'm using freshly squeezed lemon juice. You could also use a vinegar for this. And what you'll notice is the reaction between the lemon juice and the cocoa powder, kind of, you will notice a really red tinge to the cake. It's kind of cool. And then just 1 teaspoon of pure vanilla extract. Try to use the pure. It's better flavor. And then I also have here 1/3 cup, which is 5 tablespoons, 75 grams of melted butter. And it's just a little warm. You can either melt your butter on the stove, or really simple, you can just put it in the microwave. So as you see, I mean, this is such a fast cake to make. If you're doing this in the pan, a fork is a really good thing. But like I said, if you are doing it in the pan, make sure you get around those corners. And it will take a while to mix it all together. That's why I find it, as you can see, it's a lot easier in a large bowl. And just mix it all. This is really like a snacking cake. Like, just right out of the pan, I serve it. Okay, and that's it. I'll just pour it into your pan. And then I like to just tap it a few times, get rid of any air bubbles. And so into the oven, 30-35 minutes, depending on your oven. If you touch the center, it will spring back a little, or the best way is a toothpick inserted in the center will come out clean. Okay, our chocolate cake is now done. If you press the top, it kind of springs back, and a toothpick inserted into the center will come out clean. Now, you want to let the cake cool completely on a wire rack. You don't absolutely have to frost this cake. You could just dust the top with some powdered sugar or cocoa powder and serve it like that, either plain or with some whipped cream or vanilla ice cream. But I usually like to have a frosting with my cake. So what I'll show you here today is how to make a chocolate ganache, which is simply chocolate and cream. Now there's a couple of ways of to make ganache. One, you could have the chopped chocolate and just pour hot cream over and let it melt. Or today what I'm going to show you is how to do it all together. So in a heat-proof bowl, put 6 ounces, which is 170 grams of your favorite semi-sweet chocolate, and chop it up. You can either do that on a cutting board with a sharp knife or in your food processor. Or in a pinch, you could use 1 cup, 240 milliliters of semi-sweet chocolate chips. And to that, I'm going to add 3/4 of a cup, 180 milliliters of heavy whipping cream. You may know that as double cream, and that's cream with about a 35% butterfat content. And then I'm also adding 1 tablespoon, about 12 grams of butter, and just chop that. And I find you don't have to add butter to a ganache, but I find it just kind of smooths everything out. That's why I add just a little bit. And then what we're going to do is just put this over a saucepan of simmering water. And I'm just going to melt everything together until it's nice and smooth. Okay, so our chocolate is melted. So now, as you can see, this is very thin. So what we're going to do, while the cake cools, we're going to let the ganache cool and start to thicken up. Because as it sits, it will get thick, and so then we can pour it over the cake. Okay, our chocolate cake has now cooled, and the chocolate ganache has thickened. If you want it even thicker, you could just leave it a little longer until it gets thicker, but I like it fairly thin. And then we'll just pour it over the top of the cake. See, it's just beautiful, velvety smooth. It has a really intense chocolate flavor. So then you just kind of that. Now, you do want this to sit, and then the ganache will further thicken up. And then once it has thickened, then if you want, for the kids, you can put some chocolate jimmies or some pretty sprinkles on top. And you can cover and store this at room temperature for several days. So until next time, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joybaking.com.